Now we are going to move on to the next segment, and we will start off with this speaker, Mr. Wong Kai-wen. He's the Senior Planner in the Strategic Research Department of URA, Urban Redevelopment Authority. His topic is going to be innovative research approaches through which planners, researchers, architects, as well as the community can work together to make our living environment more age-friendly and inclusive. So I'll hand over now to Kai-wen. Please take over the floor.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Kelvin, can you give me the sharing rights?
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Yes, we can see you.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Good morning again to every one of you. Today, I would like to share more about Urban Development Authority, about our research work on building an age-friendly city. So first of all, I would like to bring us back to the bigger context. Singapore is an island city-state, and we have only about 730 square kilometers of land on which we have to accommodate 5.7 million. And unlike other cities, we are also a country. So what this means that we need to actually accommodate land for all the different land needs of a nation state, including port, defense, water catchment, including housing, as well as business activities. And we need to do this within very limited land compared to other cities which are smaller, like compared to London, New York, and Hong Kong. And how we do this is we do this through a comprehensive.
The slides are not moving, Kevin.
Is it moving now?
No, it's not moving. I think we see a dark patch. You probably have to reshare again.
Okay.
It's moving now. Thank you.
Okay, so it's better. Okay, so our comprehensive plan development process start with our long-term plans or the concept plan that map out the vision for Singapore in the next 40 to 50 years. Then all these broad land use strategies are then cascaded into the master plan, which guides development the next 10 to 15 years. So our last master plan was released in 2019. And finally, this master plan, the strategies are cascaded into the district level, like for example, at Jurong Lake District and Marina Bay, into specific urban design plans. And what we do is we also put in infrastructure to support the development of the new growth districts. Also, in our role as a land sales agent for government, release land for resident and commercial development regularly to meet our planning objectives. And last but not least, we have an operational arm, our development control, who will make sure that the various developments adhere to current planning guidelines. And for URA, while we are the land use planning authority in Singapore, we do not plan on our own. We work with multiple agencies across governments. So this includes Land Transport Authority for road and rail infrastructure, Housing Development Board, for public housing developments, and last but not least, Ministry of Health, for the various healthcare facilities across the island. And as part of planning process, public engagement is a critical component, and we do this through various channels shown here. So for example, in the Master Plan 2019, we exhibit the draft plan for feedback, which were then assessed and incorporated into the plan. And in terms of planning objectives, we are guided by the need to plan for sustainable growth. And hence, we have 4 key objectives. One is economic, about how we can continue to sustain a robust and vibrant economy to continue to provide good jobs for people. Secondly, is that of providing a very good quality of environment. We have residential towns which are self-contained with a wide range of amenities and facilities to cater to different needs. Thirdly, is that of environmental sustainability. So we do this through having parks and nature areas, green buildings, really with a view to seeing how we can reduce carbon emissions from our urban developments. And last but not least, as I mentioned right from some presentation, Singapore is a very land scarce country. So it's about how do we optimize our limited land and sea space. And apart from ensuring sustainable growth, there's an increasing need to also build in flexibility and resilience into our land use planning to ensure that we can adapt to emerging trends and challenges. And in fact, to put things in context, besides land constraints and aging population, which is the topic of today's discussion, Singapore faces a lot of key plan challenges going forward. And as I mentioned about climate change, which is really at the top of the agenda right now, there's also the rise of disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, the use of autonomous vehicles, as well as rising expectations from the public as to the kind of living environment they want to live in. And indeed, this is some statistics about the aging population in Singapore. We are living longer. Based on the latest stats, we have expect to live up to 85 years old. And by 2030, we can expect close to 1 million of Singaporeans to be aged 65 or older. And more of them will be living alone in their own in HDB estates and other housing. In terms of old age support ratio, which refers to a number of working adults supporting a senior, it will be halved, from the current 4 to 2. So this means that there's only 2 working adults supporting one senior age 65 above by 2030. So this has certain implications, for caregiving, for also in terms of the support that we have for seniors. Hence, it's very important to see how we can better support seniors in living independent, healthy lives for as long as possible. So how does the built environment comes in? I think as we all know, as we age, we will experience natural physiological and cognitive decline. Some will experience more, some will experience less. And this will affect our eyesight, our sense of balance. And this in turn affects the way we interact with the environment, the way we perceive it. And this in turn also affects our mobility, how we move within the built environment, interact with our family and friends and the wider community. Hence, spatial planning and design, if done appropriately, can actually better enable older adults to remain active in the community and hence supporting their physical, mental, and social well-being. So when it comes to planning for age transitivity, we can look at it at different scales. So first of all, at the island-wide level, what we need to do is we need to ensure there's sufficient provision of healthcare, and not just healthcare, but also social and community facilities, for older adults to remain active in society. And not just about jobs, but also about volunteering opportunities for them to remain engaged in society. Secondly, is at the town and neighborhood level. I think Professor Habib talked about our public housing towns. It's also in the town design, how do we actually provide very good access and connectivity to all these amenities within the town, like hawker centers, clinics, daycare centers, so that older adults can actually access these facilities independently. And last but not least, at the micro level or the building level, it's very important to see how we can design features, universal design features that can allow older adults to actually use the services inside those buildings easily. At the same time, when we design the interiors of the buildings, we also need to take into consideration how they can influence the programming and the delivery of the services for seniors. Hence, in doing all this, right, it's very important to take an evidence-based approach. Hence, the research agenda at URA is threefold. One is really understanding the needs, the living, work, play, and travel needs of aging population. And we are not just talking about today's seniors. When we plan long-term. So we also need to look at the needs of the future cohorts of seniors, which is including myself, how I want to live, work, play, and travel in the future. Secondly, there's a lot of, there's a lot of knowledge, about how the built environment influences the well-being of older adults. But I think there's insufficient evidence, local evidence that will actually investigate the specific relationships and mediating mechanisms and the specific aspects of the built environment that will influence the well-being of older adults. So are you talking about greenery? Are you talking about the roads? Or are you talking about the windows in the buildings? How do they all this influence the well-being of older adults, and which are the key aspects which are most important for us to prioritize on? Last but not least, having all this knowledge evidence is not enough. What is more important is how do we actually translate all these knowledges and evidence that we have into planning and design guidelines, to build an environment that's conducive for seniors and not just for seniors. Because by making sure the environment is conducive for seniors, you're also making it inclusive for everyone. Hence, given this context, URA, we commissioned 2 landmark studies in 2017. First is looking at the age-friendly neighborhoods. This is a nod to the fact that more than 80% of Singaporeans live in public housing towns across Singapore. And as a result, many of them will continue to age in place. I think this morning, MOS also shared that it's also aspiration shared by many Singaporeans. Hence, it's very important to see how we can enhance our public housing towns the neighborhoods, the facilities to facilitate that aspiration. Secondly, at the same time, we also need to recognize that there are some seniors who require more care and assistance at the age. As a result, they may need to move into nursing homes. Hence, the challenge is to see how we can design in a way that facilitates person-centric care, providing that autonomy, that sense of agency in navigating their everyday lives within nursing homes. And more importantly, how do we ensure that they're not isolated, from the rest of society? So through physical planning, how do we ensure they're integrated with the surrounding communities? And I think just now during the panel discussion, there's a lot of talk about collaboration. And this is what we want to do in these two research projects. We take a 3Ms approach to collaboration. First is multidisciplinary. We engage experts, academics from the architecture, design and planning, medical, healthcare, as well as the social sciences to actually work together, to come up with their different perspectives to understand the interactions between the built environment and seniors and how the built environment can be more age-friendly for them. The second M is that of taking a multi-stakeholder approach. So besides researchers, as most research projects do, we want to go one step further by involving the agencies involved, like for example, HDB, Housing Development Board, Building Construction Authority, Ministry of Health, as well as Agency for Integrated Care to actually work together to provide different inputs into how planning can take place. Not only that, we also want to do research with a view to translation. So that's how we actually involve the town councils on the ground who are actually in charge of maintaining and improving the living environment for the communities. And last but not least, co-creation is a very important aspect of the research. The researchers that they actually conducted workshops, focus group discussions to residents and incorporated in their ideas into the research process. And the last M is that of mixed methods. So they use a mixture of qualitative methods like ethnography, observations, interviews, surveys, combined with quantitative, so really tapping on big data, sensors, technology, and all that, to have a very good understanding, a holistic view of seniors' everyday lifestyles. And what we do is, with all these research findings, we adopt a design thinking process to translate them into solutions. And as Professor Habib also highlighted earlier, it's important to actually try them out and evaluate. And this is what we have done with these two studies. So let me move very quickly to the first study. The first study is that innovative planning and design of age-friendly neighborhood Singapore. The PI is Dr. Belinda Wien from the Singapore University of Technology Design, Lee Kuan Yew Center for Innovative Cities. She worked hand in hand with Jerry, Direct Education Research Institute. In fact, the moderator for this session is Dr. Wong. He's actually heavily involved in this study. Perhaps he can share some insights later as well. And the architects involved include CPG, Lacquer, and Tiara. They engage the community in coming up with context-specific design interventions. So for the research team, they actually look at 3 aging neighborhoods in Singapore: Toa Payoh, MacPherson, and Hong Kong North. And all of the research, talking to residents, surveys, observations on the ground, the research found that safety is the very most important key aspect of the built environment to seniors' well-being, as the speakers earlier this morning highlighted as well. And we are not just talking about physical health, but mental and social well-being as well. And at the same time, there's a lot of global literature on age-friendly neighborhoods. I think different cities, there are different guidelines. But in the simple context, what does it really mean? And the research team actually dissect 4 key elements, the 4 Ws, if I can call it. First of all, is welcoming. An age-friendly city is one that's inclusive. It welcomes people of different ages, gender, ethnicity. And we also need to bear in mind that seniors are a heterogeneous group of people, different levels of activity, different aspirations, different things that make it meaningful for them. Secondly, an age-friendly neighborhood is warm. And what it means by warm is to actually create opportunities, for them to interact with a wider community, not just among themselves. Thirdly is walkability. Walkability is very important because it actually allows seniors to actually make use of the amenities in a community, take part in activities, and through their wider their social network. And last but not least is wonderful. Age-friendly neighborhood is one that actually creates an inspiration. It's inspiring and engage all your multiple senses, because a very distinctive environment something that has certain kind of special characteristics, can make seniors feel more at home and age in place. So out of the research findings, the research team came up with an environment audit toolkit. What is unique about this toolkit is that it's localized to the Singapore context, and it's a rather user-friendly toolkit, about 70 items, and actually can be used by anyone, including planners, town councils, the seniors themselves, or anyone interested in senior issues to audit the environment in terms of how is it conducive for older people. And it covers all the key aspects of the environment that's important to seniors, which the earlier speakers have also mentioned earlier, like mobility, amenities, imageability, which is the sense of identity and distinctiveness of the environment, and of course, legibility, which is the ease of wayfinding within the community. The research team also came out with a set of planning design guidelines, which is strategies to make the different neighborhoods more age-friendly. Again, it's the similar themes covered here, like in terms of access to public amenities, greenery, sense of place, and of course, safety is one key component of it. And a subset of the age-friendly neighborhood guidelines is also the dementia-friendly design guidelines, which Prof. Habib has mentioned earlier this morning. So you all can actually download these dementia-friendly design guidelines from the AIC website. Now I will talk about the context-specific interventions that this research team actually implemented in the 3 neighborhoods. The architects, the research team conducted 3 community design workshops per neighborhood, and each workshop comprises about 4 participants, local residents. And the workshops actually go through a design thinking process. First is that of neighborhood perceptions, understanding the walking routes that they take, the amenities that they use, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunity and threats that the neighborhood has as the population continues to age. These are then translated into a visioning workshop where we involve the senior participants, thinking through what age-friendliness means in their neighborhood, what needs to be improved, what are the focus areas to tackle. And finally, the ideation stage, where the architects work with the residents to come up with design ideas to actually enhance the age-friendliness of the neighborhood, and what are the possible locations to try this out. Hence, in Hong Kong North, the key issue faced by senior residents is that of wayfinding as they continue to age, including the fear of falling. So what CPG did is they developed a scheme, to make the block numbers more prominent in the void decks, as well as make a level the differences more prominent, like for example with the yellow strip there. This will enhance wayfinding as well as the sense of safety for the residents walking through the void decks. And indeed, they did some post-implementation surveys as well. Actually, more than 90% of respondents actually find the scheme very useful, in actually orientating them within the space and providing directional cues. And more importantly, but perhaps not so obvious, is that it brightened up the space. It creates a sense of character to the void deck space and make it more distinctive for seniors. Secondly, in McPherson, the key issue faced by seniors is that a lot of them are living alone and they are at risk of social isolation. The void decks are also underutilized. Hence, Laka architects actually propose a mobile kopitiam or coffee shop, in local words, at a void deck to encourage the senior residents to come out and mingle, interact with one another. And on the ground survey of the residents actually showed that a lot of them like the mobile kopitiam setup, and they actually interacted with someone while at the coffee shop itself. And last but not least, at Toa Payoh West, the research showed that there's a high proportion of seniors with cognitive impairment. Hence, the architectural firm Tiara actually developed footpath designs to provide sensory stimulation and also encourage seniors to walk and interact with other residents, including intergenerational activities. I will move on to the next study, is that of future-ready and sustainable nursing homes. It's led by Associate Professor Fong Chung Chai from the NUS School of Design Environment, Center of Aging Research in the Environment. Again, it comprises a multidisciplinary research team. There's UNUS, CARE, NUH, Jerry, and including the architects which are listed here. Again, there's a whole creation process whereby you conduct focus groups for the community, basically to understand some of the ground concerns about nursing homes and what the nursing homes can be, in terms of maybe some amenities that can be opened up to the community. And they did some participatory design workshops as well, where they work together with communities to co-develop design ideas and concepts of how nursing homes can be more person-centric as well as integrated into the surrounding communities. And from the research, they came out with a few 12 person-centric design principles, which I will go through quickly. So the first basket is really talking about how we can ensure the autonomy of the residents staying in nursing homes, while ensuring a very safe environment for them. And at the same time, cater to the needs of different user groups. I think nursing homes are not just for the residents, but we also need to take in consideration the needs of the care staff, the caregivers, the family and friends who visit them as well. So as these pictures showed, it's really a very welcoming space, for different groups of people to interact and socialize. The second basket of person-centric design principles is that of the very importance of creating a homely environment to make the seniors comfortable. I think this is alluded by a presentation by Sing Health earlier. About the community hospital, how do you provide that homely feel? And why is that important? Because it makes them feel they have identified, with the space, and this can actually enhance their sense of agency and autonomy. So as this picture shows, it's actually a local example. They actually make use of nostalgic items to create that sense of memory, reminiscence, that is actually very comforting for seniors. The third big basket is that of providing sensory stimulation. So it's really talking about greenery and all that. How do you provide greenery to provide well-being? At the same time, also allowing for integration, interaction with the communities, through the provision of open spaces at the ground level. And the last big basket is that of flexibility. It's very important to build in flexibility into the design of nursing homes, because we are not just planning for the current cohort of seniors, but future cohorts as well. And at the same time, design nursing homes in a way that can incorporate technologies that can complement the care staff in taking care of the seniors. So with that, I sort of talked through about the two studies that URA commissioned, and these two studies have already been completed. But we are not stopping there yet. The next step is also to better understand the senior travel patterns of seniors, and not just about where they go, how they go, when they go, but more importantly, the underlying motivations. Like, for example, why do they choose to take bus, maybe from one end of the island to the end of the island to visit a friend, or to actually take part in certain kind of social activities? What is the underlying motivations and all that? And we feel it's very important to understand that, because that in turn will better allow us to review our planning in terms of the amenities and programming for seniors. And at the same time, as the discussion this morning shows, there's a lot of new typologies being tried out in Singapore. So we're talking about kampung amenity, Bukit Batok community care apartments. However, I also agree with Prof. Habib, there's a need for evaluation, to evaluate how all these typologies do have a positive effect on the well-being and quality of life of the residents. Hence, now we are scoping this grant call. It's designed as a longitudinal study, so we can track the outcomes over time. And more importantly, is to understand better, the interaction between physical space and programming. Programming is important, but physical space must also be designed in a way that facilitates the programming to take place. So finally, I will end by saying that, right now we're in this COVID situation, and I would like to suggest that COVID-19 shows that the physical environment is even more important now to health well-being, even though now we have we actually use a lot of technology, including today's conference, we held it online. But I do think physical environment is important. Take, for example, working from home, we start to realize that our neighborhood is very important in terms of the facilities, in terms of the food, the groceries and all that, whether they are easily accessible to us. And secondly, we also notice that there's a lot of people going to the parks and nature areas. So it does shows that physical recreational spaces do have a place, in relieving the respites of urban living. And the second point I highlight is that while the H1N2 study and mental study are completed pre-COVID, but I think the insights from there about building a very open and inclusive environment for seniors remain very relevant today. So like, for example, having a well-designed environment that stimulates the senses, I think this one will continue, should continue in spite of COVID. at the same time also incorporating appropriate technology to complement the care of seniors. And last but not least, I will end here by saying that there's still a lot of scope for research in terms of the interaction between aging and the built environment. As I mentioned earlier, there are actually a lot of planning challenges that Singapore faces, including climate change, the rise of disruptive technologies and autonomous vehicles. How do they intersect with our aging population? I think remains a question to be answered. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much, Kevin. I think it's very, very detailed presentation given us. Unfortunately, because of time, we just have to sort of cut short some of this presentation. But I'm sure if this is so popular, we can get back with another continuing series after today. So next, I'd like to invite Mr. Lawrence Le. He's the Director and Regional Practice Leader for Mixed Use and Retail Centers at Chancellor. His topic is about using design to improve the human experience in all aspects of senior living through the integration of interior architecture with building architecture, planning, and strategy. So take it away, Lawrence.
Hi, can you hear me? Great. Can you see my screen too? Great, thank you. So, hi, good morning, everyone. In this forum, I'm very excited to be here this morning to discuss this very important topic with everyone. Thank you, SUSS, the URI, and NLB for inviting me to be part of this panel discussion and to share this thought through the lens of an architect. This is a pivotal time, and the pandemic has tremendous effect on older adults. 8 out of 10 COVID-19 deaths reported in the US have been in adults over the age of 65. We are inspired by the fact that the first person in the world to be vaccinated was a 91-year-old in the UK, recognizing the importance of elders in our communities. So vaccines aside, we believe design can play a very positive role in shaping the future for older adults and people of all ages. And I look forward to share our thoughts with you today. I'm Lawrence Le. I'm the Design Director and Regional Leader for Mixed Use at international design firm, Gensler. I hear a lot of stories about, and very in-depth discussion about Singapore this morning. So perhaps what I would like to share today is to offer a more international perspective to this topic. So to the right are actually 2 projects which I had designed in the past, which I had considered age and community inclusive strategies. So currently, I'm also designing a confidential health experience center in China. In this project, our strategy is to understand the experiences of different age groups clients and how prevention and security can be introduced to enhance longevity and wellness. I will first share with you some of our design forecasts and research content. As a design firm, we invest 18% of our profits into research, and senior living is one of the key topics that we have been looking at in the past few years. And after that, I will discuss 3 key trends which we see impacting the senior living industry. So let's begin. In the early part of this year, we published our design forecast 2021 Reconnect. The pandemic has made clear the importance of human interaction. Social isolation, specifically for older adults, has had serious side effects like depression, anxiety, and general loneliness. Whereas social isolation can be measured, loneliness is felt. It is your emotional state. Loneliness is associated with early mortality. Loneliness can double the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's disease. So the balance between social distancing for healthy and safety and social connectedness for mental health illustrates how impactful the design of the places and spaces we live and gather has become. It reinforces that design plays an important role in supporting meaningful relationships. We believe that the desire and need for people to reconnect safely is driving economic recovery, emphasizing the true impact of real estate, and in many cases, shaping new innovative solutions for seniors. Design Forecast is a collection of trends, insights, and practical advice for our clients and communities can use to create the next generation of places in a post-pandemic world. And you can actually download that from our website. According to Gensler City Pulse survey, which we conducted last year, and in fact, Singapore is one of the 4 cities that we surveyed during the COVID lockdown. And we found out that people's relationship with their cities are shifting due to health concerns over public transportation and density. This shift is driving a trend towards 20 minutes neighborhood in which residents' needs from housing to school, work and leisure activities can be found within a 20-minute walk or scooter ride from their home. Our team is also driving awareness of the need for a 20-minute city to include mixed-use neighborhoods, changing zoning regulations, and integrating people of all ages into this conversation. The topic shapes solutions around equity, as well as elements required for healthy living, like parks with equipment for seniors, accommodations for adult daycare, and neighborhood solutions that include independent living, assisted living, and memory care. And of course, making all this affordable to the community. As we emerge from lockdown, the developments that motivate us to leave our homes will be the most in demand, yielding the biggest social impact and financial return. We know health, wellness, and experiences must be at the center of our design decisions. Our focus on health must include climate action. Climate change remains the defining issue of our time, and climate action is a critical part of our focus on health. Making healthy buildings for people and the planet will be critical and has become an opportunity and an imperative for us and our clients. Human experiences is a powerful opportunity and reinforces our need to connect socially with others. One of the key to long-term, long health span and a long life is social connectedness. Our Gensler Experience Index finding shows that places that support community and social connection perform better. By 2050, 1 in 6 people in the world will be over the age of 65. By huge contrast, Singapore in 2050 will have a staggering 1 in 2 residents over the age of 65. So can you imagine that 50%? These people includes myself, Kai Wen, and most of you out here. So let's ask ourselves, are we prepared for the future? Have we started designing the environment for ourselves? And according to the Straits Times article in 2016, 50% of Singaporeans are willing to move into nursing home, but 6 out of 10 prefer single or twin bedrooms for more privacy. And we hear this morning from the minister that we are starting to have our first assisted living flats, and I applaud that effort because that is really to try to really create a connection between what the consumers say they want and what is on offer. And I hope that conversation will continue to enlarge and broaden. So it will be critical that our design solutions connect people in both physical and virtual ways as our older adults continue to migrate to housing that is easier to access, to communities with milder climates, and more robust social programs or into facilities supporting higher acuity of care. The digital engagement for connectivity is growing exponentially. So the first time in history, people over the 65 years old currently outnumber children under 5 years old. It is therefore critical not just to focus on designing experiences for millennials, but to design environments that support people of all ages to embrace age and celebrate longevity. We know through the Gensler patient experience research that establishing a connection between a patient and the healthcare provider can lead to healthier and happier lives. So providing access to connectivity in all aspects of aging is very critical, and more senior living sites are investing in bringing healthcare directly to their communities. Creating healthy and safe environments that support the growth and needs of our aging population is possibly the greatest challenge and opportunity facing the design industry today. Recognizing the importance of design in supporting our aging population, I shall now move into the second part of my presentation and share with you 3 positive trends we believe can impact the senior living industry. First, age-inclusive design. Second, assistive technology. And third, promoting well-being for everyone. The goal of age inclusivity is essentially eliminating ageism through design strategies. Age-inclusive design takes into account vision, hearing, balance, memory, touch, and more. In response, the industry, especially in the US, Europe, and China, has begun to design cities, communities, buildings, and products to promote environments that support all ages. From site design strategies like wider sidewalk, slow paths, and parks with activities for people of all ages, to product designs such as touchless doors and flooring materials that reduce slips and falls. The opportunities to enrich the lives of older adults are endless. Design plays a very important role in keeping older adults safe, connected, and engaged in their community, thus shifting the narrative from older adults being a burden to being an asset to the society as a whole. As an example, Fountain View at Gondar Westside, a Gensler design luxury retirement community for active independent living in Playa Vista, California. It offers 176 independent living residences, 24 assisted living and memory care apartments, and an off-site nursing facility nearby. The design includes an array of on-site amenities that enhance social connection. These amenities include fitness centers with instructors, wellness and aquatic centers, casual and gourmet dining venues, hair salon and day spa, a library and a business center, and even a theater. There are also walking paths which supports residents' desire to remain active and engage with life around them. Every unit is carefully designed to offer ample daylighting, natural ventilation, and a strong connection with the outdoors. In fact, the residents are also connected with electronic resources and an infrastructure to maximize the use of e-health resources so that they can reach out to the community health services anytime. On a smaller scale, our product design team designed a senior-specific line of furniture in collaboration with the new traditionalist called Elevate, which focuses on providing a contemporary aesthetic that appeals to all, while responding to the specific ergonomic needs of an aging population. Specifically offering a higher seat for ease of sitting and standing, as well as a 100-degree back seat angle for more support. All these specific design elements that accommodate the changing needs of aging individuals also meet the high levels of aesthetic and performance they have come to expect. So building on products, our second trend focuses on technology and its ability to assist with aging. The image that so often comes to mind when associating seniors and tech is the stock photo of a grandparent playing with everyday devices most of us take for granted today. For example, the iPhone, virtual reality, etc. But beyond the fun and quite frankly endearing images of seniors engaging with leading tech, like this one in the picture, the combination of new devices, new technology, enabled modes of interaction and new models of care. It is creating a layered set of digital and physical experiences that is allowing us to focus on longevity and age with far greater independence than ever before. As mentioned earlier, design has the ability to shift the perception of aging as a burden to that of an asset. Innovation and the technology markets are also taking note. With unprecedented numbers and control of consumer spending, seniors are driving industries to change to meet their demands and expectations. What was once seen as a passive and segregated stage of life, old age, is now transforming into an integrated and action-driven culture focused on longevity and well-being. What was once viewed as just a demographic shift is now being examined by the economic challenges and opportunities that shift will produce, forcing disruptors to collaborate across industries to foster greater change for the seniors. In the end, instead of just pushing technologies onto seniors, the seniors are actually increasingly driving market demand for new and meaningful innovations. As we have seen over the past year, the adoption of virtual communication tools like FaceTime, Facebook, Portal, Zoom, Alexa, Siri have helped keep families and friends stay connected while also combating isolation. The convivance of grocery, food delivery, and ride-sharing apps are providing greater mobility and engagement opportunities for both individual and institutions. Requesting for a Grab is no longer just about getting to the doctor's appointment. Well, this is still important actually. It is also about being able to make social gatherings, wellness classes, volunteering, and shopping. In addition to the social aspects of these innovations, new technologies are also assisting us in living longer by helping us to become more aware of our own health. Wearables such as our wrist can collect astounding amounts of health data that can communicate with health providers and discreetly monitor for serious accidents and emergencies. Subscription services are simplifying medication management, eliminating trips to the pharmacy, reducing caregiver stress, and resulting in better adherence to medical plans. Telehealth and virtual care, which have been accelerated into the mainstream continuum of care during the pandemic, are becoming increasingly important to reach older adults in their homes and communities. So in the US, leading healthcare systems like Mount Sinai, MGB, Intermountain, and even new entrants and disruptors like Amazon Care and Best Buy Health are pushing physical care into home through technology connections with hospitalization and rehab at home. Our third trend is promoting well-being for all by embracing radical inclusivity. In some countries, many older adults seek to shed the burden of home ownership and live in a community with like-minded individuals. The mixed-use development here, town hall apartments called Town Hall Apartments in Chicago, offer medical care and a range of living options and amenities to its 80 low-income senior residents. This affordable housing project was planned with the input of seniors and community leaders, and their involvement literally changed the ratio of apartments units to amenities. Due to that engagement, the majority of the units are studios, in fact 30 out of 79 units, and the space were given back to shared spaces like a large room for community meal. This project, which won the LEED Gold, a sustainable award, integrates both a new sustainable development, street level retail, and the adaptive reuse of previous police station. Aging in place means being able to age happily within the community you are familiar with. To support healthy lifestyle, the building design uses healthy materials and cleaning products that don't off-gas chemicals that affect respiratory system in seniors, which is a key health concern for many elderly. Other active adults who wants to remain active but live in an urban setting, this project illustrates a new trend in vertical senior living. So it's located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and our work with Willow Valley is a new 20-story, 150-unit senior living residence connected with the local urban neighborhood. This is a project that is a living representation of our Gensler's Boomtown research that was done earlier, and it's to redefine downtown Lancaster. And this project brings a missing demographic group back into the community in the city. And during COVID-19, this is even more important. Creating communities for the active senior population is more critical than ever. So the idea is to provide with seniors a walkable community with access to dozens of restaurants, an active art scene, a local farmers market, and new dynamic social circles. It allows the development to be integrated back to the urban fabric. The units are designed with adaptable and multi-generational concepts. Amenities include outdoor and indoor fitness options, including a pool, a wine room, screening room, library, games room, and parking, etc. The club lounge, the French bakery, and the ballroom extend community engagement by being available to both residents and public use. Hence, one size does not fit all. We need to design all spaces to support the health and well-being of a diverse aging population. The last project I am sharing is located at Lake TAIHU in Huizhou, China. It is a mixed-use master plan that includes senior living, medical hub, hot spring resort, and cultural and recreational hub. The vision is to create a diversely energetic and walkable health town for all ages. Some of the key planning strategies here includes connection with nature, introducing activities-based facilities that support active youth mentality and optimism, making convenient for the people, the residents and visitors to access fitness centers to learn and keep fit, designs that nudge people to exercise, for example, walking paths, staircases, and give more choices to improve their experience satisfaction and relax. So population aging have implications on all sectors of society. We discuss housing, social engagement, but it will also play a big role in transportation and communication, requiring us to adapt to a higher percentage of people with different abilities. In today's market, savvy developers and operators are designing buildings and spaces that accommodate the full spectrum of residents while catering to their specific needs at all stages of life. We'll end this trend discussion with what we believe are 4 strategies for supporting longevity. Through evidence-based design research, we know exposure to natural light and air, as well as views of nature, have positive health outcomes ranging from reducing stress to lowering blood pressure. We are looking at closer at previous traditional boundaries of where private space ends and public space begins. Can we design spaces in between with more meaningful interaction, perhaps safe spaces for connection? Technology is here to stay in ways we have yet to imagine. Let's intentionally integrate technology as more and more services are brought into our homes and living spaces. Technology can assist to make our lives easier and for everyone. And let's thoughtfully and with intention design all spaces to support health and well-being that I have mentioned with age inclusivity. With this last slide, I conclude my presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for sharing with us so many interesting case studies. I shall now invite our moderator for panel discussion 2. That's our guest, Dr. Wong Chek-Hui. He's the Senior Consultant at Khoo Teck Puat Hospital. Joining him in the panel session will be Kai Wing and Lawrence, as well as a advocate from the COMSA program in South Foundation, hence Mr. Tan Hock Kee. So I'll hand over now to the good hands of Dr. Wong. Please take over.
Hi, thanks. I hope everyone can hear me. I think this session is so interesting because we are bringing together different stakeholders and different agencies in terms of the planner, and also the one who will design and implement what is an age-friendly city or age-friendly community. Who we have now is Mr. Tan Hock Kee, and we always complete the deep understanding we have. So we have deep understanding both from a planner and a designer perspective, but I think we also would like to have some deep understanding in terms of an older person. And we are fortunate to get Mr. Tan because he's part of the COMSA community, and to tell us what an age-friendly city means to him, and what does he hope to see from an age-friendly city. Mr. Tan?
Yeah. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Tan Hock Kee. What I know that from this panel today is it's very interesting that you have aging-friendly concept for the future. But currently, it's the time now. There's a lot of different for the elderly here, especially now in Singapore. Yeah, let's say you build very nice nursing home and all that, but the problem is the culture. For the people like the pioneer generation or even the medical generation, the culture is that these old people don't like to go to nursing home because they would just feel that this is a place where, you don't want them, just throw them in a place where it's no longer a burden for you. This is one of the aspects of having nursing home. So what I'm really very interested in is that currently, how can I say, is that the elderly that we have here in Wong Po is also, we can have categorized into, let's say, active elderly, people that can move around freely or having a friendly chat with their friends in a neighborhood coffee shop or something, and those that are really handicapped, for example, wheelchair bound or dementia. These are two types of different elderly that we have here in this community now. So we need to study is that how can we help each other? For example, right now I'm one of the attending members in the Concept and Power group. I just joined this group, and then they're teaching us that how can elderly help elderly. This is one of the good aspects, because usually it's the young try to help the elderly, but the problem now is I think there's a big generation gap between the younger people now than our time, because we may have gone through a lot of hardship that they have never gone through. So there's a, how can I say, it's a lot of different. And next is the lifestyle that we have also. For us elderly now, we are so used to, how can I say, manual hand using or leg movement ability rather than technology. So when the government pushed technology to be, say, so fast that we elderly actually cannot keep pace with it. So it's very difficult to say that, oh, you step on this and the leg is on. Everyone don't know. If you watch movies, everyone understands, oh, that's called motion sensor. But to elderly like us, they are not so, how can I say, used to such technology. So it takes time, but the problem is that we don't have this time because we are at this stage. So it is a good idea now. The next thing is the education of the next generation. Those that's coming to the 50s, those that is now young, the younger generation, that in future, you need to see such aspect. For us now, like elderly now, we need this, how can I say, easy access to medical health, and also to have financial support from the families or from the communities. And finally, also that we need to have empathy, more empathy, understanding of the senior citizen here that we have. Some people say that, how can I say, look at the old elderly going around collecting cardboards and all that. They say that, why pity them? Actually, for some people, it's not that they want to do it, but they are forced to do it in order to survive. Then next, the other thing is that also they may do it just because, how can I say, they keep themselves active in the sense that they can move around. I know one of the old ladies here, she goes around picking up all the cardboard from Wong, and she push all the way the trolley, the cart with heavy loads, go on to Toa Payoh just to dispose. I asked her, why does she do it? She said, oh, to earn some money at the same time is to be, how can I say, actively, healthily participate in the community. This is what I think is much more concerning the current time. But if you're talking about the future now, as the panelists all have been discussing, I think that you need to consult is the next generation. And the next generation is how can they understand that they will face such things in future. Right now, if you ask all the youngsters, do you know you'll get old? Everyone say yes. How are you going to live old? I don't know. Because there's a mentality of youngsters now is that you earn and you spend more or less. I don't know whether you spend more or less. Because like technology, you say it's just like signing a card. It's so easy. Just sign. So everyone sign. When it comes to collection, will you be able to offer it? So if they don't plan for themselves in the future, I think this will be harder to age. How can I say, age wisely. So everyone on longevity or fine wellness. What is behind that? There's one more important in longevity and wellness is that you want longevity, but if you're not financially able to support it, do you want longevity? I wouldn't want it. If I'm not healthy, I also don't want to be longevity because I'll be burdening other people. So there's one concept that we have to think about. Education now is the most important thing. Even let's say weather, climate change, how many people will understand climate change? Here you talk, but there you don't do it. Oh yes, I cut, coal, I stop. But behind the back, you say, I still need it to do it. This is ridiculous. This is what I understand is this problem now.
Thanks, Mr. Tan. I think you gave us quite a lot of food of thought. If you allow me, I will just rephrase a few of the questions for our two panelists. I think there were basically three questions that I will simplify it a little bit. So forgive me if I got it wrong. So the number one is that beyond physical structure, how do we balance things like end user design or end user centricness for older people, and also the more softer and intangible needs and qualities such as dignity, social, cultural, interest, and language? So that's the number one question. And number two question is, buildings are just buildings. They are just physical structure. But what we are interested in is also in terms of how do you build communities that will populate these buildings and interact within these communities. The third one, to me, is one of the questions that was posed out also was on sustainability. Because not everyone wants to go to a nursing home, and sometimes nursing home is pretty expensive. So how do we get a variety of different types that will actually fulfill the first two criteria that will have older people, getting older people interested in? So I really like your questions because these are very, very important questions. So I'll first give the two questions to Kai Wen and then to Lawrence. Thanks.
Okay.
Hello, yeah, thank you, Mr. Tan, for your sharing. I really enjoy how you mentioned about some from your own insights, and also talking about the current seniors, they preferring to age in place. Nursing home is seen as a place which is not somewhere that we want to go to. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your insights. In terms of the three questions, I think in terms of physical structure, I think this is a very important question about how do we balance, right? I think one thing that planners, right, as architects, okay, I let Lawrence speak for himself, but as planners, I think one thing we need to recognize that the built environment is not everything. Okay, we cannot plan everything. We cannot plan community networks. We cannot plan community bonding. We cannot plan for seniors to come together and shape the environment. But what we can do is to provide opportunities, for the communities to be involved in designing the environment, in giving feedback, on what they want to see in their environment, the kind of senior living options that they aspire to. So actually, Mr. Tan, I think your point really resonates with me about young people not knowing about how we want to live in future. I think this is really quite a common sentiment, I think, at least among my peers as well. And so I think I sort of answered the very first question. The second one is about building communities. Again, it's the same thing. I think it's really providing opportunities for communities to be involved in the planning and design process. And secondly, also providing that kind of spaces, within the buildings that we design to allow for informal kind of interaction. So my understanding is that, for example, at Bukit Batok, community care apartments, they actually plan a space on every level to actually allow for the senior residents to come together to take part in activities, whether by the community manager or they come up with their own programs as well. And the third question is sustainability. This is definitely a very important issue in Singapore. As I highlighted in my presentation, we are land scarce and also resource scarce as well. So how do we actually provide for all these senior living options? I think the issue is that of supply and demand. So on one hand, it's really talking about the younger population, the future cohort of seniors. What kind of senior living options that they aspire to? And on the other hand, it's from the policymakers, from the developers, whether some of these options make sense, whether in terms of policies, in terms of financial sustainability and all that. Yeah. So I just provide very quick answers to these three questions. Thank you.
Okay.
So is it to me? Yeah. Okay. So I think for me, I think it's really, I think I really like the point that Mr. Tan mentioned. In fact, Mr. Tan, I go to Whampoa Market every weekend for my marketing. So I'm very familiar with your neighborhood. And, so I do see a lot of things that's happening as you have just mentioned, So, but I think what is really good that you raised is that, a lot of people, they don't know how to manage their finances. And then if you can't even manage your own health in old age, what's the point of living longer, right? So I think longevity must come with affordability. I think that's really very important. And, I think that's where we talk about inclusivity, right? It's really designing for all ages. It's not about whether you're having a lower income or you have a higher income. I think the issues with aging goes across all sectors, all segments of life, whether you are wealthy or not. So, and everybody wants to stay active. in their old age. And that's really to create a meaningful and purposeful life for ourselves in this society. So I think this is where I heard a lot about. I felt that I heard a lot about these initiatives, and we have great initiatives in Singapore, towards senior living, especially in the public sector, in public spaces, in the public housing. But what I felt is quite short, or maybe perhaps there are opportunities is really looking at the private developments as well, because like I say, there are old people in landed estates, there are old people in private condominiums. What about all these people? It doesn't mean that I'm rich now, I will be rich when I'm old. So my if I get into a serious health issue, my whole wealth will be drained totally easily in this society here. We are not like in the US or elsewhere, we are fully covered by the government in our old age. And that's why you see a lot of examples that I shared earlier, in US, there are a lot private driven. There's a lot of, they're also looking at affordable healthcare and a wide choice of variety of residential developments for seniors, from public to private. So I think this is where we also need to start looking at the various policies. In fact, for example, I have a client, one of the largest real estate developers in Singapore. They have land, in the prime district. It is an apartment now, and but because of the land use, they can't readapt it, for senior living purpose. I mean, in fact, they want to readapt it. But so I think this is where there are a lot of opportunities for aging in place, because there are people who say, for example, living in landed estate, they also want to age in place. Aging in place means to be really staying where you used to be, you're familiar. It's your choice community, right? It's not like moving you to another housing estate, because there's a senior living house apartment there. So we really have to start broadening our perspective on this and see how we can perhaps not just create new developments, but also how can we repurpose and reposition existing infrastructure. For example, like, the land that my client has, into a senior living development, maybe for somebody who is maybe middle income or more higher income levels, because we all face the same aging issues. If you have a health problem, you have a health problem. It doesn't matter whether you're poor or rich. So I think that's where I mentioned, longevity must come with affordability. It's really across all sectors, right? So that we don't have to worry, because right now, as I mentioned, I have to admit, in 2050, 1 in 2 Singaporeans or residents will be above the age of 65. That includes me. And I have to design for myself right now. If I don't start thinking about it now, what's going to happen? But it's not just alone by myself. It's really doing it with the community of everyone that's in this forum here. We are all interested in this topic. But, but that is why engagement is very important. Like the project that I shared in the US, they engage with the residents. They know what kind of design and needs of the residents are required. They design, they put the budget there, so that we don't put budget in the wrong place. We put budget for purpose, to design fit for purpose. I think that's really what I think is very important here. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Lawrence and Kai Wen. One of the things that I sort of gathered from Mr. Tan is that a lot of historical perspective is sort of gone, because his history will be different from someone in the future's history. And he's talking about his own historical perspective. So one of the questions that I've always had is from your two perspectives, and things are changing very quickly. Must we always build new structures and new buildings, or can we adapt the old ones that may have a more historical familiarity or something that resonates with older people? So from a planner perspective and from a designer perspective, how would you sort of look at this?
Yeah, thanks, Jake for the question. I think for URA, besides the Land Use Authority, we're also the Conservation Authority. So we actually drive the conservation of many historic districts and buildings in Singapore. So some of which you can see today, like Chinatown, Kampong Glam, Little India. And we also encourage adaptive reuse of all these historic buildings. Instead of tearing them down, we see how we can inject new users, into all these buildings. So it's really talking about a balance. I think planning is really talking about taking a holistic view of different stakeholders and balancing that. So in terms of the tussle between development and conservation, right? I think it's the crux of the question is this: should we conserve everything, but at the same time, we sort of do not actually cater to the needs of the younger generations, because by conserving everything, you may actually remove the opportunity, for new generations to come in to inject new meanings into the spaces. So I think it's a more nuanced kind of understanding. So how to strike a balance, and it need not be like either or kind of yes or no kind of answer. You can actually combine both, and in Singapore, we have done that quite well.
Yeah, I thanks, Kaiwan. I'm a fan of old buildings, to be honest. But I think we really have to look at the situation, especially in Singapore, where land is really scarce and very expensive compared to, say in other countries like the US or Europe. I mean, like for example, the project I showed, is actually an integration of an old police station that's disused, and really trying to make it more meaningful by integrating with the new development and create sustainable development. I mean, I believe there will be interesting opportunities, especially I think for the elderly. Some of these buildings will have very memorable experiences for them. They may have been, working in that building. They may have been, going to that, postal station for a longer time, or they have been passing by that fire station in their neighborhood for the longest. So some of these, I think, buildings could potentially become interesting, asset enhancements that we can do to create that memorable experience as part of our future, right? And also to let people know that these are our past history. Like for example, every time I drive by the cenotaph with my children, I'll tell them that this is your grandpa was part of the builders doing that cenotaph at Raffles Place. So there are a lot of interesting part of our city that we can actually look at and integrate with our senior developments. And so for example, even the Toa Payoh, the Dragon Playground, right? It is a very meaningful structure. Every time I pass by, in fact, I passed by over last weekend, I see that building that playground standing there, but all the flats are being removed. So what can we then consider or design into that neighborhood for all these future senior living amenities? I think that's a very important question, and something that we definitely should consider in the future.
Okay. Thanks, both Lawrence and Kaiwan. So I have one question of my own. I am a great fan of walking. And I think walking has a lot of benefits, not just health-wise, but also in terms of environment and climate. It is a more green way of doing transportation. So my question for you two guys will be, in terms of access and mobility. So I know Kaiwan shared a little bit about mobility in his talk. How would planners and designers look at walkability, and what kind of impact would you look for? Because I think Susanna talked about evaluation. What kind of impact do you look for in terms of, hey, my project was successful and it sort of fulfilled all these, older people loved it, older people walked more, they navigated better throughout the whole heterogeneous kind of perspective. Because like Mr. Tan says, you don't just have very healthy, but you have different types of people, older people that are living there. So how would you look at it from both planner perspective and from designer perspective?
So your question is about evaluating the impacts of walkability? How do we do that? Okay, can. So I think walkability is again another key strategy that URA has. Is really contributing that whole car light paradigm, reducing the use of private transport, making the use of more public transport, and through walking and cycling and all that. And definitely, I think walking is something which is something very important for seniors, to actually access the amenities, in their neighborhood and all that. But I think the important point that you brought up is also persons with disabilities. Seniors have different levels of mobility. So how do we actually cater for that? And again, it's I hate to use the word balance, but I think looking at our environment is really very constrained, in terms of the paths that we have for wheelchair users, for pedestrians, and even for cyclists, and perhaps the PMD users. So again, I think the challenge for planners is how do we actually plan for and actually design desirable walking routes, that actually can accommodate different users of different ages and different abilities. And in terms of evaluation, yes, that's actually a very important point. As I mentioned in my presentation, we are embarking on this study looking at senior travel patterns. So as part of the study, the researchers will also look at how whether there's a relationship, between the travel patterns, the travel modes they take, as well as their quality of life, their health outcomes. So we are indeed evaluating an aspect. And I think the evaluation is very important because that in turn will allow us to better plan and design our working environment for seniors and in fact for everybody. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Likewise, yes, actually, I agree with what Kai-Wen has mentioned. In fact, the project that we are doing for TAIHU in the master plan that I mentioned, we did account for the travel patterns of seniors, and not just seniors but visitors and their caregivers as well. So really looking at the design detail of how footpaths are designed, the journeys, and really besides just walking for a healthier lifestyle, more active daily life, what kind of amenities that we can design along these walking paths, because there must be a purpose along this. It's not just they may be just strolling, but but what would really pull them out from their homes? What would really attract them to come out? Because a lot of us sometimes we just want to be in the comforts of home, especially I think during COVID we have social isolation. And you see a rise of people going to the parks during COVID. I've never seen so many people going to parks or cycling or walking. In fact, I myself start walking a lot during COVID. And that's why I start walking to Wampo Market every day actually during COVID for my coffee. So I think it's really, we have to look at how to make it convenient for people to access this, say, fitness facilities, or so that you can cite them along the walking path, so that they can do something midway and rest, or sitting benches. Because even when I go to Wampo, I see the benches, they have all this metal railing that the elderly can't even, of course, it's not intended for them to lie down, but really, how do they rest? So some may have different conditions, they need a backrest, but a lot of the chairs in the public spaces don't have that, and it's just a normal bench. So, some of this design we can really consider and think about it. And perhaps, what kind of designs that can really nudge them to exercise along these walking paths. Maybe some of them can go for a staircase walk. So there must be different options, not just walking paths, right? There can be staircase, there can be winding paths, there can be walking through. So we can allow different journeys possible for everyday experiences. Today I may be walking path A, tomorrow I may be walking path B. So it's really creating that diversity and ever-changing experience that really enrich your active senior days.
Thanks, everyone. I think they've already sort of beat me in terms of times running out. But I would like the panelists, including Mr. Tan, to give one last word. And if there's a last word, what would you sort of share with the rest of the people attending the seminar today? Mr. Tan?
If we are talking about community consultation, then I think you should approach more to an elderly group, to and at least get around the people that we're talking about going to do what age-friendly for them. So the elderly group should be doing. For example, now we have what we call you're going to build how can I say, a park in somewhere in Wongpo, and they just put up how can I say, a pamphlet with a barcode there. Please give us your advice. Let me ask you, how many elderly will go and scan the barcode and tell you what they want to do? So it is more, I would say that you are talking about age-friendly, then it is better to approach the elderly committee, have some contact with them, have a group discussion. It is much more simpler. Then you understand what they really want. Right? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Tan. Kai-Wen?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Tan. It's definitely important to engage the end users, right? The seniors and all that. And actually, I think my last word is a bit more to recognize the lack of attention. I think throughout this conversation today, we have been talking about a lot about seniors, but we forget that seniors actually form part of a wider network. Their caregivers, their families, their friends, the different organizations, I think we also need to involve them in this conversation about how we can build a age-friendly community environment as well. Yeah, thanks.
Lawrence?
Yeah, so for me, I think I do hope to see more engagement coming and extended to different stakeholders of the community, all age groups from young to seniors, in workplaces to caregivers, and even in all kinds of environment like mixed use retail centers, because we know that people are working longer. So how do we design inclusivity in all aspects of their life and even in income segments? So regardless of wealth, age, and origin, we all face the same aging issues. So let's design for everybody. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
That's good.
I think I'd like to thank the panelists. We had a very interesting discussion today and very lively. And I'm grateful that they shared their knowledge and their experience with us. I just want to sort of look at two questions that came out during the chat box that I was looking at, and just look at in terms of, we have all the will, and I think we have very brilliant people. So today I'm very happy that to listen to designers and urban planners who actually think very deeply on this issue, on this challenge that we have. But ultimately, I think also Mr. Tan said the same thing. All of us have to come together, including researchers, come together and actually cooperate in terms of, and collaborate in terms of finding a solution that is holistic and comprehensive. And that, to me, is one of the most interesting subjects that, although we don't have time today to think about, but I think that platform itself will be very, very helpful. So with that, I'll conclude and then pass it back to the SUSS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wong. Like you said, today we have a very well represented kind of communities, from different parties, and also even representatives on the ground. And we are interested to know more of what's happening and try and contribute more to the community as well. So the next symposium that SUSS is organizing jointly with NLB will be on the 11th of June. There will be some very exciting kind of virtual tours to other countries so that we can have live information of their case studies that's happening and try and learn more from them as well. So thanks everyone for making this symposium possible today.